All right, let's jump back into it. I trust that you're enjoying this process, and I'm so excited to bring to you today a very important topic, which is practicing functional selfishness. And I talk about this with my clients a lot, and it keeps on being the one key factor into success is being able to value your success, being able to see that you are number one in your business, in your relationships, in your family. Because if you can't be at the top of your game, then nothing will happen. So today, talking about functional selfishness is a pivotal part for you to be able to create that version of yourself that still cares, is still able to give to people, but you're giving to people in a conscious way that makes sure that you're not giving too much of yourself and spreading yourself too thin so that you can make sure that you have time for your dreams and your business. So what I'd love to be able to bring to the surface today is the topic of managing your energy and creating that sustainability in business that's going to get you through. The other point is to talk about the word selfishness, because I know that we all have some stuff around it. We were told to be selfless, not selfish. And functional selfishness, in the way that we're going to be prioritizing ourselves so that we can give to others, is not selfishness. But we're using the word today to just destigmatize it, to allow ourselves to use the word selfish and not feel that resistance within you. So I trust that this is a really important topic for you as well, to be able to go on an exploration of maybe where there's some blind points. And as you go on this journey, it means you will be able to put yourself first. And for some of you, it's the first time ever. And I really understand that. I really understand that in quite a few families, there was a whole theme around giving to others. Maybe there was a bit of an identity created around being the one that always mothered and helped, or being the one that was always being the most caring or the most kind. And so for a lot of you, this is a big change, a big shift in your mindset, but it makes you have so many more options when you realize that maybe that behavior that you're playing out, that identity that you held really close to your heart, isn't serving you anymore in this new feat of business success and being able to create the outcomes that you desire. And I know that it might be a little bit hard to hear that and recognize that it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you can't also still be that caring version of yourself. It's just taking a step back, seeing what's important, looking at what outcomes we want, and then finding a way to get there. So if this is you putting yourself first for the first time ever, congratulations. It's going to be a rocky ride, and I know that you can do it because it takes practice and it's a skill that we develop. We need to rewire our brains from a lifetime of conditioning, a lifetime of self-belief, a whole society that tells us that if we do things for ourselves that we're being selfish. So there's a lot to this message. And as a business owner and as a leader, knowing how important it is to put yourself first, and from that place of abundance, from that being top of your game, then you can create that profitable business. You can create that team that's thriving. And that's the exploration we're going to go on today. I talk about the, how do I say this? I talk about the mechanisms that are playing out within us that come from our childhood. And they are mechanisms. They're default strategies. We create these strategies because they serve us when we're children. And if we never stop to question them, then we end up playing them out our whole lives. And we never heal what needs to be healed, or we never step into all of our true potential because we're too busy playing out the mechanism. And my mechanism was people pleasing. And I'm a really friendly, lovely, positive person. That's how I define myself. And that was limiting me because I wasn't able to be the leader that I need to be to say what needs to be said. And I know that that's still a journey for me. And it's definitely something where you're constantly learning and growing. And you know that that's part of you that's going to need to be developed in order to step into that true potential. So what I made sure that I did was learn how to articulate those boundaries. I didn't know how to interrupt people, for example, when they were speaking and just going on and on and on, because I thought it was rude to interrupt someone. And that was a big one, because people are going to be demanding your time. People are going to walk into the office and just want to have a chat. And it seems harmless, but if you do that too often, or if Joe Bloggs comes and tells you about his long lost lover, and it's a 15-minute story and it's not serving you, well, you need to be able to interrupt them and say, hey, I really do appreciate you, and I've got things to do today that I need to get on to. And Joe Bloggs won't actually feel as offended as you might make up in your mind, or as I made up in my mind. I should own that. So I needed to develop the vocabulary, the grace, the new way of being that allowed me to say what needed to be said in a way that was conveying the message so that people would be able to respect that, and I would be able to create space for myself so that I can rock on and do the things in my business that I needed to do. Cool. So are you loving it so far? I'm sure that this is, it's just such a common challenge for so many people, and I'm really excited to be having this conversation and being able to put this into the program so that we can all learn how to be functionally selfish and just rock out as business owners and maximize our time. So business sustainability is the next point. And what I mean by sustainability is not the green sustainability, even though that's very important. It's your sustainability in business, because you are your biggest resource. And we all know about burnout. We all know about people who have had to close businesses down within the first couple of years because it got so stressful that they didn't know how to handle it, and then they went into the dark hole. That is awful, because people have all of this potential and the big dream, and they don't learn how to realize it because they don't learn how to be sustainable with their energy and with their time. And as we go on this journey, I trust that you will learn how to access that new level of fulfillment and passion and grace in your business as you step into that business ownership that allows you to not just have a business, but that the business is part of you and moves through you and is fluid, and you are able to navigate that in a way that feels aligned. And that's true sustainability. It's not, I have to go to work. It's, I can't wait to rock out with these clients today because I'm feeling great. Life and business are merging together, and you've got enough energy to continue the journey. That's business sustainability. And there's a wonderful story about, I used to live in Canada. I was living in Banff, and I had this roommate called Tomo, and he was a Japanese mountain climber. And Tomo was about this big. He was a really, really small guy. And he used to take me on missions and show me all of the mountains around Banff. And one time we went to go and see the bald eagle migration. And the bald eagle migration was really special because they fly from the north of Canada all the way down to Mexico. So it's about 10,000 kilometers that these bald eagles fly. So what we did was we hiked up onto a ridge line, but the mountain was like this. So it was a little curve, and we sat underneath the peak of the mountain so that they couldn't smell us. And we just lay there in our sleeping bags with our mats, and we just watched the bald eagles fly over us. And it was such a phenomenal experience. We maybe saw 20, 30 bald eagles in one day. And as they were flying over us, I remember there was one bird that was flapping more than the others. And I said to Tomo, "Hey, look at that guy, he's flapping." And Tomo said, "Yeah, he's going to die." And I thought, my goodness, what do you mean he's going to die? And he said, yeah, because he's flapping his wings too much. He's not going to make it to Mexico. He's going to die. And that was a really hard-hitting story for me because I could see this perfectly able bird flying in the sky that was heading for a death sentence because it didn't know how to be sustainable with its energy. And it's the same in business. It's a long-term game. We must learn how to be sustainable with our energy. Otherwise, we'll burn out. Otherwise, we'll flap too much, start working hard and not smart. And as a result of that, a perfectly able human that can have a very successful business but didn't learn the key principle of energy sustainability within themselves won't be able to succeed. And now as we go on this journey, I can help support you to also uncover the blocks of what is holding you back from being able to put yourself first, from being able to value yourself enough to know that you do matter and that your dreams matter, and that the key to that is creating space for yourself so that you can realize all the magic that you have within you. When I was starting to learn about sustainability and being able to understand more about myself, because I do have a lot of energy, I never created space for myself to meditate. And a lot of people said to me, you should meditate. And I never really thought it was a great thing to do because I just sort of thought, oh, well, my mind's too busy for that. Or I don't have enough time to meditate. There was all of these excuses that I told myself. And what I realized after I started to meditate was that you kind of come back to yourself. It's like you are connecting with your soul. And there's this abundance of energy that you have within you as long as you are connecting to yourself. And that's when I started to be way more powerful in the way that I showed up every single day, was because I created space and time for myself in the morning to be able to meditate. And then I would top up my cup. I would connect into myself, and I would have so much extra energy that I'd be overflowing. My cup was so full that it was overflowing, and then I could give love to everyone from the saucer of the cup. And that metaphor, that analogy of having so much energy that you're overflowing and can give it to people from the cup, from the saucer rather, helped me to understand the importance of meditation. The other thing is we've touched on boundaries and acknowledging that other people also need to be functionally selfish. That we need to acknowledge that within our teams. And I remember going on a date maybe 5 years ago, and maybe an hour before the date, the guy texted me and said, hey, really feeling a bit exhausted, going to have to give tonight a miss. I'm going to have an early night or something. And I remember a friend of mine at the time said, oh, that sucks. I can't believe he pulled out on you. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, isn't it amazing that this man knows how to manage his energy and knows how to value himself enough to say, it will happen eventually, let's go another night, and that it's okay to do that. And so just recognizing that when we see that behavior, we need to allow ourselves that space and acknowledge others as they do that, so that the behavior gets affirmed, so that we can continue to create that environment where people are topping themselves up first, and then your workplace and your entire environment becomes about people that are thriving, who are using their sustainable energy, rather than people that are going the extra mile, which seems a really good thing to do, but then burning themselves out along the way because they don't know how to take a step back and connect with themselves. Nice. So, one more thing. And this is going a little bit advanced. So I trust that this is okay to just share with you what I've experienced as a coach, and with over 300 hours of coaching, really starting to see those patterns that play out in people. And one of the patterns that I've noticed is that people pleasing and taking care of others is a strategy. And like I mentioned before, it's when we are in our family environment, we play a role as a child. And that role works really well for us as a child. We need to be the people pleaser in order to get love. Or we need to be the hero so that we will be recognized and acknowledged. Or we need to be the scapegoat so that we can have some attention and validation. There's all these roles that we play as a child. And the common theme with people that are putting others in front of themselves rather than being able to value themselves enough to put themselves first, what tends to happen is that it's a strategy to not find out what you're made of. I'm going to say that again. It's a strategy to not find out what you're made of. Because the decision to people please and to take care of others is made out of fear. And when a decision is made out of fear, it's to keep us small. It's to keep us in our shells. And as long as we're taking care of everyone else, we don't have to step into our full power because we have a great excuse. We're taking care of others. And that's a biological mechanism that plays out within us. We don't want to go out into the fullest of our potential because it's a scary place. Because we don't know that person. We don't know how fantastic we can be because we've never experienced all of ourselves. And when we start to develop functional selfishness, it's because we are ready to step into that full potential. And that makes us that powerful version of ourselves because it's a sustainable version of ourselves. And if you start to practice this, then you will become all of you because you've stopped worrying about others and started to care for yourself instead. So let's talk about how we do this. And I trust that you're taking something valuable away from this message. There's a lot in there, and it's okay to be overwhelmed. It's okay to not understand. You can just watch the video again. And of course, we'll talk about this in the group coaching and make sure that you are reaching out if you need any other support. So how do we do this? How do we create that functional behavior within ourselves so that we can thrive? And the first one, like I mentioned earlier, is creating space. And what do I mean by creating space? Well, everyone does it differently, and I'm not the one that says you have to have a morning routine. Success does leave clues. And when you look at the really successful people in the world, one common theme is that they all have a morning practice. But I'm not about to say that that's the only way. For me, that is the way that it worked. And I'll share with you how I developed that. Because I didn't used to have a morning practice. I used to just wake up, breakfast, car, work, come home, do the evening thing, and then go back to bed. And then the next day, the cycle would start all over again. Living in that sort of subconscious mode where I wasn't consciously choosing who I wanted to be because I wasn't connecting in with my soul, myself. And when I started to develop my morning routine, at the beginning, it was occasionally doing yoga. And then I started to dabble with meditation. And maybe I'd meditate once a week if I was lucky. Not lucky if I created the space and if I remembered. Then I got to the stage where, I remember I was in the Netherlands with a friend of mine, and I used to want to do yoga for 45 minutes in the morning. So when I didn't have 45 minutes, I didn't do yoga. And then a friend of mine, she said, should we do yoga tomorrow? I said, well, I've got to work at, and she said, well, we'll just do it for 15 minutes. And 15 minutes was way more achievable than 45. So then I started getting into the routine of doing yoga for a shorter amount of time and having time for meditation and having time to do other exercise. But it was a building one skill on the next. And it wasn't that I have to go and wake up and do these things. I'm not just there to do them. It was about me being the person that was wanting to do them rather than feeling like I should. Do you get the difference? So it wasn't just me saying, I must do this because I know it's good for me. It was me saying, okay, I'm going to get out of bed. What do I feel like doing this morning? Okay, so meditation would be fantastic for me to connect to myself. And it took me a year to develop a good morning routine. And when I don't do it, I don't beat myself up about it because that's all right. If you achieve it 3 times a week, it's better than nothing. If you achieve it once a week at the beginning, perfect. But it's about creating space. So when I first wake up in the morning, the first thing I think to myself is all I got to do is have a cup of tea. I don't put all this pressure on myself that I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Or sometimes I'm like, I should run today, even though it's raining. But I make sure that I don't put pressure on myself to have to be one way. I just get up, have my cup of tea, then I meditate, then I have a cup of coffee, then I work out, then I do my yoga, and then I start work at 9 a.m. So it's a really nice way to ease into developing a morning routine, if that's what you want to do. If you're able to create a routine after you've dropped your kids off at school, brilliant, that's great. So it's about creating space. And when we create space for ourselves, that's where all our creativity comes from. That's where all of our aligned decisions come from. That's when we're able to tap into what we truly want. And that's why creating space is so important for functional selfishness. It's because when you don't know what you want, well then you can't be functionally selfish about it. But when you know that you need time in the morning, or even if you're a mum, 10 minutes in the bathroom, and if that means locking the door, that's what you've got to do. But you need to decide within yourself what it is that you need to be able to top up your cup. Does that make sense? Cool. So the question here is, what standards do I need to set for myself? And a standard is a conscious decision that you make and a rule that you set in stone so that you follow it. So don't try to make it too hard for yourself at the beginning. If the new standard is that once a week you shower on your own without your children, brilliant. If once a week you go for a half an hour walk around the block to start off with, do that. And I'd love to get into more in depth of exercise and how important it is for us. Might have to save that for another group coaching session, because exercise is what's going to also help you with that sustainability, to get the blood moving, to get you into it so that you're ready to attack your day. Now, number 2 is to recognize that your energy is a finite amount. It's like a pie. So you've got the circle and you've got 12 pieces of energy that you can give out. And when you think of energy as a finite amount, you have to decide where you distribute it consciously. And I remember talking to a client just 2 days ago about a client that she had, and she calls her Mrs. Fussy Bottom. And she's very demanding, and my client shared with me that she's also quite mean. And she can't put any of her other staff on that shift with Mrs. Fussy Bottom because this lady is very demanding and nobody else can handle her. So she doesn't want to say no to that business, but Mrs. Fussy Bottom is costing her so much energy that she's not able to redirect in other areas that are going to help her business and help her team. So we had a conversation. What does it mean for you to keep Mrs. Fussy Bottom on? And what is the new way going to look like? Because it was costing her, she was gaining an income from it, but it was costing her so much energy that it wasn't worth it. I remember saying to another client, if you didn't have to deal with all of these terrible clients that you have, what would you be using that energy for instead? And this client just said, I'd be rocking. I was like, yeah, well, go do that. Because remember that we need to work with people that are a values match. We need to surround ourselves with people that don't cost us so much energy, because it's okay. Some people don't like us and we don't like them. Some people cost us too much energy because they're too demanding, and that's okay. So maybe that people pleaser mechanism is playing out a little bit there of not wanting to say no, or that scarcity mindset around income is saying, but I need the business. Do you? And is there another way that you can make it work? And if you had more energy within you right now, would you be able to find higher quality clients? So seeing energy as a finite amount of energy that you want to distribute to selected people that you consciously choose is going to really help you to give your energy in other ways to other people. So next time you want to please, next time you go to say yes to someone that just isn't a values match, notice that within yourself. And the first step is awareness. When you feel that mechanism playing out, that needing to be a hero, or you're just such an intuitive mother person that you see that that person really needs this and you could just do it, but do you need to right now? And is it serving you? And if the answers to those questions are yes, then rock on and go and do that. But recognizing that the awareness around that mechanism is the difference here. So what are you taking away from this? What is the thing that is resonating with you the most? And I trust that you've written in your workbook some really key action points for you to be able to move forward here. So the last one is to value yourself. Step 3 is valuing your time, your energy, and yourself. And it should really be step 1, shouldn't it? But I made it step 3 because we can't value ourselves if we don't know how to say no, if we don't know how to create that space for ourselves. So valuing yourself is about knowing that in your business, you are your biggest resource. In your family, you are the biggest gift that you can give them. And when you know that, when you can say that with certainty or feel that with certainty, to know that you do matter, that is going to really help your team and your family thrive, because they'll be getting the best of you and not the rest of you. So what could you do differently this time in your interactions with your family and with your interactions with your team that's going to help them feel like you know your value? What could you say that's going to allow them to hear that certainty? And most importantly, how can you acknowledge yourself? Acknowledging yourself for being number one, acknowledging yourself for the amazing things that you've done, acknowledging yourself for listening to that people-pleaser mechanism and not reacting the way that you always have just because it's easy. And then as you start to value yourself, then you'll be able to see with real clarity what it is that you truly want to achieve. And then you'll be able to create a pathway to get to your dreams. That is what makes a fantastic leader. Great. So I trust that you enjoyed this, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.